murder, bloodlust, revenge, snakes. If there's one thing I love about stories, it's how you can read a story that was written thousands of years ago and still connect to the characters. And you can see common themes from those stories that trickle down through the years and make it into the stories that we're still telling today. So today we're talking about the theme of revenge in literature, and then we're going to go into a breakdown of some songs from Taylor Swift's Reputation album that speak to how this theme has evolved and remained the same since antiquity. If we haven't met, my name's Megan. I'm a professional writer, editor, and writing coach. I'm really excited to talk about this with you. So we're going to start back in ancient Greece in the 430s BC with a play by Euripides called Medea. It's probably one of the most well-known Western revenge stories from ancient literature. So if you haven't read it, do. It's really good. It's the epitome of unhinged. So the play opens with the nurse telling us how Medea and her husband Jason went through some stuff together, and they were eventually exiled to Corinth, where they now live. And they were really well loved in Corinth, but Jason decided to leave Medea and their two children so that he could marry King Creon's daughter and move up the political ladder. And the nurse tells us that Medea gave all sorts of help to Jason, so she ends up calling out to the gods to witness how Jason is repaying her favors. Medea is understandably crushed. She won't eat. She won't get out of bed. And the nurse tells us Medea is a dangerous woman. It won't be easy for any man who picks a fight with her to think she's beaten and he's triumphed. So basically, like, you don't mess with this chick. And Medea's like, this intense pain. Am I not right to weep? Oh, my children, cursed children of a hateful mother, may you die with your father and his house. May it all perish, crash down in ruins. So she's really in her feels. That's what we can say. That's what we would call it today. She's really in her feels, and she's just letting that get a little irrational. And she's like, death to Jason, death to you, death to your chicken.
Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.
All of it. She also says, if I find some way to punish Jason for these injustices, his bride as well, and her father, say nothing. In other things, a woman may be timid, but when she's hurt in love, her marriage violated, there's no heart more desperate for blood than hers. And that's just maybe something that we can keep in mind for later. So Creon, the king, he's the king of Corinth, and Jason's soon-to-be father-in-law, apparently. He goes to Medea. He hears all of her ruminations on how she wants to, kill him and the kids and all of that. And he goes, listen, lady, I know your trouble, all right? I have heard things.
I knew you were trouble when you walked in.
And Medea tells him, this is not the first time that my reputation has badly damaged me. It's happened often.
My reputation's never been worse, so...
Again, we'll just put that in our back pocket for later. And Creon wants to banish her from Corinth, but Medea begs for mercy. Let me just get my affairs in order and then I'll be out. And he's like, okay, you have 1 day. And she's like, perfect. 1 day is all I need to plot your imminent demise. So that's what she does. She plots the imminent demise of Creon's daughter. I should actually look up how to say that. Glauci. Glossy? Stop. No, it's not. Un momento. Should have looked this up before. Glauce. Why did I do my hand like that? So Medea starts plotting out how to kill Creon. His daughter, the one that Jason's going to marry, or is married to now, actually. Her name's Glauce? Glauce? Anyway, and Jason. So, long story short, she pretends to reconcile with Jason. So this is all part of her scheme. She offers gifts to Jason's new wife to convince her to let Medea stay in Corinth with their kids. So it's all this big ploy to get them on her good side. But really, she poisons the gifts, and one of them is a dress. So when Glauce puts the dress on, the poison seeps into her body and she dies. And then, we weren't expecting this, but King Creon is so overwhelmed with grief that he's like, life's not worth living without my daughter. So he embraces her and the poison seeps into him and then he dies. So 2 birds with 1 stone, I guess. But anyway, Medea through this whole process is cool as a cucumber. She's like, just how I thought it would go. Perfect. But at the end of the play, in her final act of vengeance, to really drive the knife straight through Jason's heart, she kills her own children. And then she flees, and she leaves Jason suffering with the loss of everything that he holds dear. Yeah. So when people think about Medea, it's often just a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, and just like instantly decides to act on her revenge and starts plotting out this scheme and enacting it. She says, "The plans I've made have been set in motion. I'm confident my enemies will pay. They'll get their punishment." And then before she kills her children, she says, "I understand too well the dreadful act I'm going to commit, but my judgment cannot check my anger, and that incites the greatest evils human beings do." That kind of hurt and betrayal and anger, when it's left to fester and allowed to grow and expand, what limit is there to the evil that is possible from a person? So that's kind of the question we end up with from Medea, but it's a story that has endured for its kind of, for that exact thing of like, what would drive someone to commit these acts. And that's just the beginning. So now we're going to jump ahead to the 1600s and talk about Hamlet by William Shakespeare. This is another iconic, classic revenge story. Hamlet is probably Shakespeare's most well-known tragedy. Honestly, I feel like most of his tragedies, I feel like, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and Hamlet are probably the most well-known. Now that I think of it, I feel like his tragedies are way better recognized than his comedies and his histories. The comedies, I feel like, end up falling to the wayside more than the tragedies, which, what does that tell us? But anyway, that's a side note. Hamlet opens, and we're at this palace in Denmark where Hamlet and his family live because he is the Prince of Denmark. And two sentinels are walking around the palace, kind of keeping watch, and they run into a ghost, and the ghost looks oddly like Hamlet's father, the king. What a great way to start a story. You're just like immediately drawn in. It's spooky and creepy, and questions pop into your mind that you have to know the answers to. Amazing technique to use if you want to write a gripping opening to your story. So anyway, we're introduced to Hamlet again. He's the Prince of Denmark, and he's just found out that his father has died pretty mysteriously. Everyone's like, natural causes, but he wasn't like feeble or old, so a little bit weird. But not only that, he finds out that his mother, the queen, remarried pretty quickly, and she remarried his uncle, Claudius. So, bit weird, kind of creepy. Understandably, he's pretty distraught. They tell Hamlet, they're like, "Why do you still seem sad?" And he's basically like, "Seem, madam? Nay, it is. 'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother, or wearing black, or having a fruitful river in his eye. These indeed seem, for their actions a man might play. But I have that within which passes show. These but the trappings and the suits of woe." Oh, and we just have got to give a moment for those lines. He's basically saying, I'm not just putting on a show to seem like I'm grieving. I am deeply, deeply hurting and filled with woe. It's so good. So good. The way Shakespeare writes that is utter poetry. So, long story short, Hamlet's ghost dad appears to him, which is understandably disturbing, and he tells Hamlet, "So art thou to revenge when thou shalt hear, revenge his foul and most unnatural murder." Murder. So he basically tells Hamlet, you're going to avenge me when you hear what really happened to me, because it wasn't natural causes, it was murder most foul. Come on, that's so good, that's so good. And his ghost dad says, the real clincher, which is, "But know, thou noble youth, the serpent that did sting thy father's life now wears his crown." What? So Hammy's uncle, Hammy. I should call him Hammy. No, I can't do that. So Hamlet's uncle killed his father. We all might know this familiar tale from its more modern retelling.
Long live the king.
So Ghost Dad is like, avenge me, remember me, and suddenly Hamlet is in the throes of this huge moral dilemma. And what's interesting about Hamlet versus Medea is that Medea, she was wronged personally, and she immediately decided, I'm going to take revenge on this. But in Hamlet, he wasn't personally wronged, not really. It was the king who was killed. And then this idea of taking revenge is thrust upon Hamlet, like you do this. I'm telling you to go seek revenge. And so Hamlet's grappling with, well, first of all, my dad was murdered, so the heck do I do with that? By my uncle, who's now married to my mom, so that's just too much already. But now he's grappling with whether or not he should actually go through with the revenge, which would mean killing his own uncle. And our sweet little Hamlet, little Hammy, he's an overthinker, and so he spends quite a lot of the play ruminating and contemplating and questioning whether he even has the right to kill Claudius, or if it's better to just suffer than it is to seek revenge. And that's where we get his famous soliloquy where he says, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing, end them. So he's basically just wrestling with what is the nobler path? And he's essentially like, do I continue suffering with this impossible decision, or do I just end it all? And so basically what really messes everything up is actually the fact that Hamlet has the opportunity to kill his uncle but hesitates. And because of that, it sort of sparks a series of events where pretty much everyone in the whole play ends up dead. So, Hamlet stabs Polonius thinking it's his uncle. Oops. His uncle accidentally poisons Hamlet's mother because he meant to give a drink to Hamlet, but it ended up with her, and then she drank and then she died. Hamlet kills his uncle. Laertes kills Hamlet, and Hamlet also kills Laertes. Ophelia drowns. Literally everybody dies. That is why it is a tragedy. So in the end, technically, Hamlet does get his revenge, but it costs him everything. He questioned it so much and went back and forth so much that it actually ended up being worse than it would have been maybe if he had just acted right away. And so the question that can come up for us as readers or viewers, since this is a play, is should he have just thought less and done it? What does that mean for the rest of us? Is that what we're supposed to take away from this story? So it's a super thought-provoking play and a classic for a reason, because those questions aren't necessarily easily answered. But it's a completely different take on revenge than we see in Medea. Now we are going to travel from 1600s England over to 1840s France and talk about The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, which is quite possibly one of the best, if not the best, revenge story of all time. It's got betrayal, wrongful imprisonment, escape, treasure, secret identities. I mean, this story is so good, and that's why it's the thickest book you'll ever see in your life. Look at that, so big, so big. So this story kicks off with Edmond Dantes, and he is a young, handsome, successful merchant sailor, and he's got everything going for him. He's got the beautiful fiancée, he's gonna get promoted to being a captain and having his own ship. He's got it all going for him. His future is set. And the thing that's so great about how Dumas presents Dantes is we could be oh, this kid's really arrogant and full of it and he's just getting everything handed to him, but we don't feel that way because Dantes is actually just a good being. And we're oh, we love this for him, and that's part of the problem. But anyway, one example of this is when Dantes, at the beginning of the story, comes home from a long trip at sea and he realizes his father has been living on nothing, because he used most of his money to pay off one of Edmund's debts. And Edmund is you paid him out of the 200 francs that I gave you, so that you lived for 3 months on 60 francs? Heaven pardon me. And he falls to his knees in front of his dad and he says, "You've cut me to the heart." We just see that he's a caring, good-intentioned young man, and we're gosh darn it, I'm really glad things are going well for him. He's just a good dude. So then the story really switches on a dime, because these four characters, these four men, have it out for Dantes. And they're just jealous. They're jealous of his fiancée. They're jealous of his job and all his success. And they're let's ruin this kid. Maybe we'll just hold on to that for later as well. So they frame Edmund for a crime he did not commit. They throw him in jail unjustly. And the jail is the Chateau d'If, which is basically the Alcatraz of France. It's offshore, it's fortified, ain't nobody getting out of there. And what I find particularly heartbreaking, he's in prison for 14 years, so there's just no hope of getting that life back, which is cue what did Hamlet call it? Cue the fruitful river in my eye. But in prison, he meets this old priest who tells him that there's this treasure on the island of Monte Cristo. And so Edmund starts plotting how he's going to get out of jail and go find that treasure. And I love this part of the book because they dig a secret tunnel between their cells so that they can go and hang out with each other. It's just really sweet. Anyway, and then, this is so good. Okay, last plot detail, then we'll keep going. The priest dies. That's not the good part. But Edmund knows they're going to remove his body. So he swaps places and hides in the priest's bed so that they actually wrap him up and take him out of jail. What he doesn't realize is that he says something like, the sea is the burial place of the Chateau d'If. So when they have a dead prisoner, they chuck them into the sea. So one of the chapters ends with him like tied in a burlap sack sinking to the bottom of the ocean. You're like, he's never gonna make it. It's so good. Okay, if you haven't read the book, go read it. All right, so he escapes. Spoiler alert, sorry. Actually, I just realized if you haven't read it, I'm gonna just spoil the whole thing for you. So maybe go read it and then come back in 3 months when you finish it. All right, so he escapes, he finds the treasure at Monte Cristo, he reinvents himself as the mysterious, wealthy Count of Monte Cristo. And what's different about Edmund's revenge is it's very meticulously and methodically planned out, down to the very last detail. You could even say he's a mastermind. But he doesn't just want to punish them, he wants to take away everything that would possibly bring them joy in their lives. And that's not unlike what we saw in Medea. So really long story short, he basically sets personalized traps for each one of these men, and they fall into them one by one. And Edmund takes this kind of twisted but very calm satisfaction during the whole time. Kind of like Medea. She steps back and watches it unfold, and she's like, good. That's what I wanted to have happen. So it's very like almost detached, but just satisfied, you know? But what we find by the end of the novel, he realizes that the revenge didn't really bring him the peace that he thought it would. So his pursuit of vengeance really isolates him, and he's left with more of a sense of regret, which we really haven't seen in either of the first 2 stories we've looked at so far. At one point he says, I who was looking on, an eager and curious spectator, I who was watching the working of this mournful tragedy, I who like a wicked angel was laughing at the evil men committed, protected by secrecy. A secret is easily kept by the rich and powerful. I am in my turn bitten by the serpent whose tortuous course I was watching, and bitten to the heart. Not another snake reference. So the Count of Monte Cristo is interesting. It's similar to Medea in the sense of like the scope of the revenge. It's very all-encompassing. He wants to destroy everyone who has hurt him, like completely wreck their lives entirely. And he's also, like Medea, calm, cool, and collected during the whole thing. Like once he sees the revenge unfolding. But it's different from Hamlet, who was racked with indecision, whereas Edmund was like, nope, I have planned this out to the T. And I mean, granted, he did have 14 years in prison, think about it. So that makes sense. Hamlet didn't really, I mean, I guess he could have taken longer, but he didn't. But in both Hamlet and the Count of Monte Cristo, both men end up causing way more suffering than they actually intended. So that's kind of an interesting similarity. And of course, in this story, we're left asking questions like, does revenge really bring the satisfaction that we think it will? Or is that fleeting? At what cost is revenge worth it? Now let's jump ahead to modern times and talk a little bit about some honorable mentions. First, there's The Godfather by Mario Puzo. Yes, this was a novel before it was a movie. And that sets a revenge story, as I'm sure we all know, in the world of organized crime. One thing that's different in the novel versus the movie, so in the movie this doesn't happen, is that Michael's father doesn't actually die in the novel. Somebody attempts to take him out. So interestingly, there's actually a different dynamic going on there. You're avenging somebody who's still alive, but it's different from all the stories that we've looked at so far because it's less about the main character avenging themselves, like we saw in Medea and in The Count of Monte Cristo, and it's more similar to Hamlet, but only in that regard of avenging somebody else. Godfather is compelling too because a large part of Michael's revenge is driven by wanting to protect his family's honor and legacy. You know, you don't disrespect the family. But as he wins some battles, ultimately he loses himself more and more in the process, much like we see with Dante's. And we're left again, kind of like Hamlet, questioning and contemplating this whole concept of revenge. and how it can consume and ultimately change a person beyond recognition. And is that worth it? That's for you to decide. One of the great quotes from that book is, of course, "Revenge is a dish that tastes best when served cold." Yikes. Moving into our final honorable mention, we have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And there we see another highly, highly methodical and calculated revenge story. Not unlike what we saw Dante's do in The Count of Monte Cristo. So Amy meticulously plans out her revenge against her husband who betrayed her. And it's similar to Medea in that way, of like a woman taking revenge against a man who wronged her and going to extreme lengths during that. And I think overall it's really cool to see how many parallels there can be between revenge stories from antiquity all the way down to ones that were written like 15 years ago. The whole concept of revenge is so emotionally driven that I think it easily makes for interesting narratives. Like, it's really hard not to empathize with a character like Edmond Dantes when he's been so unjustly hurt, like he did not deserve that. So then not only are we immediately empathizing with him, but we're rooting for him all throughout the story. We're dying to know, will he get his revenge or not? So I think that's really clever. In stories like this, and even in other stories, you want to think about how can I quickly get my reader to empathize and connect with my main character so that they are rooting for them hardcore throughout the whole story, because that's what's going to keep your reader engaged from start to finish. There's a reason all 5 of these stories have been widely acclaimed. I mean, I don't know, we just love ourselves a good revenge tale, I guess. But I think it's partly because there's so much emotional tension and questions, and will they succeed, will they not, and we're rooting for them. It's so easy to root for these characters. So, all of that being said, I want you to keep all of this in mind as we transition into some of Taylor Swift's songs, particularly from her Reputation album. But before we get into those, I would be remiss not to mention tracks from her earlier albums. Even as far back as her debut, Taylor positions herself as the character that we're meant to root for, as somebody who has been wronged, and usually unjustly. And I think that's super interesting that you can see that at play as early as her first album. Think about songs like You Belong With Me, Picture to Burn. We're getting a sense of those two characters, of one who has been wrongly hurt. Like, you belong with me. You're not making the right choice and I'm being hurt, but I'm who you belong with, you know? So we're empathizing with her right from the start. And then in songs like Picture to Burn, we get a little bit of a glimpse at her vengeful side, where the underlying theme is something that shouldn't have happened. I'm hurt by it, and now you can watch me strike a match and burn it down, basically. I think it's really interesting that you can see those two sides of her, those two characters at play. Then, in Speak Now, we get Better Than Revenge. Again, the perfect picture of a revenge story. It's the person who was unjustly wronged. She took him faster than you could say sabotage. I'm innocent. She's the villain here. And then the instant switch into revenge when she says she underestimated just who she was dealing with. And she goes, she should keep in mind there's nothing I do better than revenge. I feel like across the Red album, she continues to cast herself more as the wounded hero, as someone who was unjustly hurt, drawing our sympathy again. You know, I was at my 21st birthday and you didn't show up, like, makes us really empathize. And we get flashes of that on 1989 as well, but I feel like the wounded hero character is just a bit more complex and dynamic on that album. I'm thinking about Style, where she's like, he said, what you heard is true, but I can't stop thinking about you. And she goes, I said I've been there too a few times. So it's less of like, I'm just the innocent party here, and it's more like I might be contributing to this. We also get a few songs like Blank Space and Bad Blood, which again hint at not standing for the way she's been treated. She might be the wounded hero, but that's not the end of the story. But it doesn't quite hit as hard as it could until we get to Reputation, which I feel like is a response to a moment, multiple moments, where the hurt finally cut deep enough for her to go, all right, I'm done like thinking about it, done pulling the Hamlet and thinking and contemplating and hinting at it here and there through some of my songs, and I'm gonna enact revenge. Thankfully, not through murder, but through message. So let's see what she had to say in some of those songs. We're gonna look at 3 today. Let me pull them up. Can you guess which ones they'll be? Comment below before you watch the rest of this with which songs you think I picked. Curious to see if you picked the same ones that I did.
I don't like your little games. Don't like tilted stage.
What I like about this is sort of it's like her ruminating. So I'm just thinking about Medea and Hamlet and Dante's, all these characters now who are treated wrongly, and then there's always this moment of like reflection and rumination of like, I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm pissed off that you did this. This is not the way it should have gone. I feel like we get that in all of the stories, really. And so it's great to see her starting off. I feel like almost if this was in a full revenge novel, we would have had the setup of, the you belong with me kind of vibe. And then I feel like after the event happens, this is like the immediate follow-up. But okay, I could be wrong. So she says, let's talk about the lyrics. So, I don't like your little games, don't like your tilted stage. I mean, obviously I love that she's talking in play and theater metaphors when we've been talking about plays this whole time. So, I don't like your games, your tilted stage. That almost makes me think of a stage that you're going to fall off of because it's tilted.
The role you made me play of the fool. No, I don't like you.
The role you made me play of the fool. I think it's really interesting that she starts the song off this way. Because the album is called Reputation, I feel like there's a connection there between you made my reputation be of the fool. You made me seem like the fool. That's the role that I had to play in this like twisted narrative, this game that you set up for me. Ugh, gross. In the history of theater, there were often characters called the fool or the jester. And to the outside eye, we might think, oh, they're not very smart, or like they're a fool, they're a jester, they're just there to entertain. But what's cool about that role in plays was that the jester, the fool, was often the one who used their wits to outsmart people. They were often a source of wisdom. They were often a source of a different way of thinking. I think about the fool in King Lear, who was giving commentary and calling out King Lear's mistakes throughout the play. I think about Feste in Twelfth Night, who again is kind of like this observer of what's happening and then offers his own thoughts and commentary. So I think there's a lot more that could be going on in that line, the role you made me play of the fool, because she ties it to stage, a stage which brings up theatrical imagery. I think it'd be really hard to separate like a theatrical fool from the history of that kind of role in a play, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, we're only in the first 4 lines. All right.
I don't like your perfect crime. How you laugh when you lie.
I don't like your perfect crime. How you laugh when you lie. You said the gun was mine. Isn't cool. No, I don't like you. So I think it's kind of funny. It's like this really serious first 3 lines of perfect crime. You lied and you laughed about it. You said the gun was mine. Like really serious stuff. And then it's not cool. Like, I don't like you. I feel like it doesn't really match there. But anyway, the wrong that was done against her was calculated. It was methodical. Not unlike what Edmond Dantes did. Not unlike what Amy did in Gone Girl. How you laugh when you lie. That is another level of manipulation and grossness. If you're gonna lie and then laugh about it, it's like you're making light of something that is to this person a crime. So it's something very serious to this person and you are making light of it, which is gross. Okay, red flag. And then she says, you said the gun was mine. So basically she was framed, right? Not unlike what we see happen to Nick in Gone Girl. Not unlike what we see happen to Edmond Dantes in The Count of Monte Cristo. Again, in these revenge stories, what makes them so powerful and so enduring and so gripping is that it's not the fault of this idyllic, innocent main character. They're framed for it. And so immediately we're like, that is so wrong. We need to know more. We need to keep reading. We need to keep listening. So let's do that.
But I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time. Honey, I rose up from the dead, I do it all the time.
Okay, sorry, but we mentioned earlier, where was it? This is what reminded me of Taylor when I read this in Medea, where she says, this is not the first time, Creon, that my reputation has badly damaged me. It's happened often. Now, the difference with Medea is that her reputation was actually connected to things that she did do. So they were exiled to Corinth. So not maybe exactly the same thing, but that's what that line makes me think of when she says, I rose up from the dead, I do it all the time. I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time, which is a little sad, honestly, that you have to get hard when things hurt you. You know, you have to lose some of your softness in order to rise up from the dead. But she says, I do it all the time.
I got a list of names and yours is in red underlined. I check it once, then I check it twice. Oh.
Girl. So she says, I got a list of names and yours is in red underlined. I check it once, then I check it twice. I've always related that line, I check it once and I check it twice, to Santa Claus. Like, he's making a list, he's checking it twice. Which I just think it completely does not match the theme, the feeling, the mood of this song at all. So for me, thinking about Santa Claus in that moment, like, it takes me out of the song a little bit. But I like the idea of you know, you have a nice list and you have a naughty list, and you're checking it twice to make sure everyone's on the right list, right? And yours is in red underlined. When you underline something, particularly in red, it's like you're drawing your eye there. That's the most important thing to focus on. But she has a list of names. So similarly, like Dante's, it's not just one person that she is seeking revenge on. It's multiple people. But there's one in particular who she wants to get back at the most. That's what I take away from that, at least. So basically, she just says, look what you made me do, a ton of times. And now when I've heard this song in the past, I've never actually listened to it all the way through and looked at the lyrics before, now that I think about it. But whenever I've heard this chorus, I'm always like, what did she do? Look what you made me do. What did she do? And I think that's where it comes down to, you know, every story we've seen so far, basically the revenge has to do with like murder or destruction of somebody's entire life. And Taylor, I don't think, has done all of that. Well, she obviously hasn't murdered anyone that we know of. But Taylor, I feel like here, it's like, look what you made me do. I almost had to shed the skin of what I was before and take on this new persona. That's how I've kind of always thought about it. And then I know, too, it's sort of connected to, you know, you made me have to step away from the limelight and go into hiding and reinvent myself, in a sense. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on when she says, look what you made me do. What do you think she's talking about?
I don't like your kingdom keys. They once belonged to me.
So she says, I don't like your kingdom keys. They once belonged to me. You belong to me? You asked me for a place to sleep, locked me out, through a feast. So let's unpack what the heck she's talking about. Your kingdom keys. If you have the keys to the kingdom, that's kind of an idiom. It's a common figurative phrase that means the world is your oyster. Let me just explain one phrase with another figurative phrase. It just means everything's coming up roses. It means you have everything going for you. Like, doors are opening, you're seeing a lot of success. You have the keys to the kingdom. You are the king, right? You're the queen. You're the ones with the keys. So you control things, you have access to the whole kingdom. She says, they once belonged to me. So there, it just communicates to me there is a huge loss. The whole kingdom has been lost. And that is not a small thing.
You asked me for a place to sleep, locked me out and threw a feast.
And then, weirdly, you asked me for a place to sleep, locked me out, and threw a feast. So that kind of feels like the moment when the keys were stolen. Like, this is how it happened. She says, you asked me for a place to sleep, so you took advantage of my hospitality, you took advantage of my kindness, you took advantage of my naivety, all of that stuff. Then you locked me out and you threw a feast. And you only throw a feast if you're celebrating something or indulging, you know? So it just those lines, I feel like, really encapsulate the feeling of just utter betrayal. Of like, I was extending my kindness to you and you stole everything from me in that moment. And then you probably laughed about it. She conveys that so well. She's not saying any of that in those lines. She's literally not. But through reading it and breaking it down, we can see the emotion and the story that is unfolding behind what she's saying. And that, I feel, is the mark of really good writing. Because what she didn't say was, I was really nice to you and then you were mean to me and that felt really bad. That is what she's saying in a lighter way. But that's not how she said it. And it lands so much more because she's using this figurative storytelling here.
The world moves on another day, another drama. But not for me, all I think about is karma.
My gosh, it is giving Medea, it's giving Edmund, it's giving, not really Hamlet, actually, it's giving Michael, it's giving Amy, it's giving all of them. It is the classic revenge tale, yet again, unfolding before our eyes. She says, the world moves on, another day, another drama, which means maybe everyone else has already forgotten about it, but I sure haven't forgotten about it. All she thinks about is getting back at them. Does that sound familiar? I mean, I love it. I love how you can see consistent themes throughout all of literature, even into something like a modern pop song. So cool, so much fun. She says, and then the world moves on, but one thing's for sure, maybe I got mine, but you'll all get yours. Like a classic revenge story, it doesn't end with the main character getting hurt, right? Getting what was coming to them, even though usually it's not deserved. Similarly, in this story so far, it doesn't seem like it was deserved, but that's not where it ends. And that's what makes it a great revenge story, is that was part of the story, but what's coming next is even worse for all of you.
I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me. I'll be the actress starring in your bad dreams.
So I think it's always important. I mean, I know songs are a little bit different than stories and poems, obviously, but I always think it's important when something is repeated, especially so many times, it should be repeated for a reason. You don't want to accidentally repeat things. You want to repeat things for a reason. So obviously in this song, we get a lot of, look what you made me do, look what you made me do. Like, seriously, look at it. I'm not going to shut up and stop saying that until you actually look at it. I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me. We'll ignore the double negative. It's fine. She's going for edginess. We'll let that slide. So I don't trust nobody. Nobody trusts me. I'll be the actress starring in your bad dreams. And she repeats that over and over again. She's really trying to state, like, this is who I am now. This is what it is. And this is what's going to happen next. I will be. It's not I am the actress starring your bad dreams. It's I will be. So this whole song is really, like, to me, just that in-between phase of the wounded hero being hurt and then enacting their revenge.
Old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. Why? Oh, because she's dead.
Again, what's cool about this is in almost every story we've looked at prior to, there was either a huge, deep betrayal or literally a murder. And so what's cool here is that she's combining the two and saying, this betrayal feels like a murder. It feels like you literally killed the old me, or maybe she had to kill the old her in order to get past this. But the old her, no matter what, is dead. And so now we are seeking revenge out of that. And so I think it's cool just how that all connects to the stories that we've looked at so far. One thing I liked as I was going through all of these stories and thinking about the Reputation album is obviously the snake is a huge symbol for the Reputation album. And obviously that's in part because she was called a snake, but I think snakes have such an interesting and dynamic symbolism. You've got the snake in the Garden of Eden. You've got snakes being able to shed their skin and get rid of what was before and kind of emerge as something new. So that's very symbolic. Snake bites, they're poisonous, they can kill you. And as we've talked about before, there are a couple times where the idea of a serpent or a snake comes up. Hamlet's father says, but know thou, noble youth, the serpent that did sting thy father's life now wears his crown. So snakes are things that take your life. In the Count of Monte Cristo, Dante says, I am in my turn bitten by the serpent whose torturous course I was watching and bitten to the heart. So I was reveling in this snake that was going along and causing all of this torture, but then I in turn got bitten by it too. And I think that actually can apply really well here, where the people who were, causing Taylor all of this grief were probably, right, watching and laughing as the snake that they set loose was doing what it was supposed to do, but in turn they would end up getting bitten as well. Just a thought that I had, but I love all of these little connections. It's so much fun. All right, so that's song number 1. Let's look at song number 2. What do you think it will be?
I never trust a narcissist, but they love me. So I play them like a violin.
I never trust a narcissist, but they love me. Which is funny because in the other song she says, I don't trust nobody and nobody trusts me. She's not contradicting that here. She's just saying they love me. Doesn't necessarily mean they trust me, but they love me. And I have a feeling that's somewhat sarcastic. But So I feel like this is getting out of the period of like rumination and plotting. And obviously the title of the song would give it away as well. But gets out of the rumination and plotting and into the actual enacting of the revenge. And because the song's title is in past tense, I did something bad, we can assume that now she is reflecting on that. And it comes through when she says, so I play him like a violin and I make it look oh so easy. That's another great idiom, because to play someone like a violin, you're really meaning you're going to manipulate or control someone by sort of messing with their emotions or appealing to their emotions. So I think it connects back to the first two lines of I never trust a narcissist, but they love me, so I play them like a violin. Because they love me, I can manipulate their emotions and control them. That's what that's telling me. So actually we get we get 4 conjunctions in a row. Conjunctions are connecting words between two different separate ideas. But you can remember it by fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And because can kind of be in there as well. So we get, I never trust a narcissist, but they love me. So contrasting. So because of what I just said, this is true. I play him like a violin, and connecting ideas there. I play him like a violin and I make it look easy. So what I'm getting is she's taking advantage of them and manipulating them. Fantastic. That's great. For every lie I tell them, they tell me 3. This is how the world works. Now all he thinks about is me. Honestly, to bookend that first stanza or verse with I never trust a narcissist would imply that that person only thinks about themselves. To bookend that with a line that says, now all he thinks about is me, that's so good. That is so good. Amazing. I feel like that would be something people would not give enough credit to. That's really smart. So I never trust a narcissist. This is the before. This is what has happened. Now he's thinking about me. But she's still painting a picture of her versus them, right? We're still getting a little bit of the innocent side, even though I have to do this now and commit these, manipulations and whatnot. I'm still nowhere near it. They're 3 times worse than I am. And she says, this is how the world works, which is really sad. So there's a sense of powerlessness in that. If this is how the world works, what are we going to do to stop it? That's how the world works. So that's sad. So what I get from that is almost I was forced into this. I wouldn't have chosen this myself, which of course, because it's a revenge story. So of course you wouldn't have chosen it for yourself.
Crimson red paint on my lips. If a man talks shit, then I owe him nothing. I don't regret it one bit, cause he had it coming.
Okay. I can feel the flames on my skin, crimson red paint on my lips. All right. Well, this gives me hellish devil imagery. I don't know if that's what she's going for, but I can feel it almost feels like I'm turning into this devil. Like I can feel the flames of hell on my skin. Crimson red, I mean, that's a very specific kind of red. It's not like cherry red. It's not like, apple red, something with a nicer, lighter, softer feel. Crimson feels almost like either superhero, or it's just giving me pictures of like the devil that's on your shoulder is always a dark crimson red. So crimson red paint on my lips, it's like war paint, it's not nice light lipstick, it's not a stain, it's paint, like I am going to war. I could also read it as I feel the flames on my skin, like things are heating up. You could read it that way too, I think. Or even just I'm getting worked up and I'm hot. I'm like hot, I've got my war paint on, I'm like ready to go. She says, if a man talks shit, then I owe him nothing. I don't regret it one bit because he had it coming. So unlike Dante's and unlike Michael, we don't see regret here. It's very similar again to Medea, who is like, even though I'm about to commit these atrocities, these devilish acts against my own children, my own judgment cannot extinguish my anger, and so this is just what's going to happen, and there is no regret. And so same idea here, I don't regret it one bit because he had it coming. And isn't that how people who are seeking revenge in all of these stories, that's how they feel, right? You had it coming. You started this. I tell 1 lie, you tell 3 lies, so I owe you nothing. Let's see what she says next. Oh, I forgot about that part. This is another song that I didn't really I don't think I've ever listened to it all the way through, but I've heard that little clip before. Oh, I love that. Let's hear that again.
And I do it over and over and over again if I could.
Ooh, I love that. Okay. They say I did something bad, then why does it feel so good? They say I did something bad, but why does it feel so good? Most fun I ever had, and I do it over and over and over again. If I could, it just felt so good. All right. So one thing I think is interesting here is that she's not saying I did something bad, which is interesting because the title of the song is I did something bad. But here she's actually saying they say I did something bad. So did she really do something bad? And that makes me wonder, because at first I was thinking this is sort of the enacting of revenge. But now I'm wondering, does this relate back to the instigating event where she was made to play the fool, right? Is that what she's referring to when she said they say I did something bad and it was whatever, was going on when she was on that tilted stage? Or is it something that she has done more present day? Right now. I'd be curious to know what you think about that. Why does it feel so good? I might be reading this too much in regards to like the singular event of like what happened with her and Kanye and then Kanye and Kim and all that stupid stuff that went on. I wonder if this is almost extending it larger than that and talking more about her reputation as a whole of like, you're always the person that uses the guy and then for a little while and then dumps him and then makes a lot of money off your heartbreak songs. And that's bad. And I wonder if it's more like that. So they say I did something bad, but why does it feel so good? Most fun I ever had. I wonder if she's almost like poking fun at that, like what a stupid concept to even think that is what I was doing. So I'm just going to play into that and go, yeah, you know what? It felt great to do that. I'd do it over and over and over again. It felt so good. So I wonder if it's almost this kind of sarcastic, like poking at that. Like I'm just going to lean into all of the, sort of like what she did with Blank Space, but instead of making it its own character, she's just taking that on of like, they say I did something bad. Yeah, maybe I did. I did, and it felt great. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, too.
Think they saved me. They never see it coming. What I do.
This is what I was just talking about. Okay, well, that makes me think that my second thought that I just said was maybe correct. That they said I did something bad is referring to how the media portrayed her and gave her this reputation of being, this plague girl, honestly. And yeah, someone who flies her men all the way around the world and lets them think that they saved her and then they never see it coming when she dumps them. Basically the character from Blank Space that she created. So now I'm thinking she's basically saying, they said that about me, and I'm just like, fine, that's what I did. Let me lean in. But I don't know, I could be wrong. But anyway, she says, I never trust a playboy, but they love me. So similarly, when there's repetition, I always think it's good to look at that and go, what can we compare and what can we glean from why something's being repeated? So I never trust a narcissist, I never trust a playboy, but these are possibly two similar types of people. That's what I would draw from that repetition. So I fly him all around the world. It's interesting. She goes from, but they love me, so I fly him. Maybe just speaking to how it's always the same kind of guy, even though it's multiple guys. I fly him all around the world, and I let them think they saved me. They never see it coming, what I do next. I never trust a playboy. They love me. I fly him all around the world. I let them think they saved me. They never see it coming. That's interesting. I don't know if that's purposeful, the switch from they to him to they again. Like multiple people, single people. I find that to be inconsistent. Like I would assume that that was not necessarily intentionally placed, but it's Taylor, so it might have been. It's also tricky because she says, they said I did something bad, so they is taking on this different persona, and so to talk about they here, it almost feels like it's muddied, so it could be both. Like, I let them, as in the people who are saying these things, think that they saved me. They never see it coming, what I do next. So is she saying like, I don't know, I could be twisting myself in a knot. It could be either I fly him all around the world and let's just put the media, we'll just blanket term for the people who create this reputation for her that she's now playing into. I let them think they saved me by like saying maybe this guy must be the one or something, and then they never see it coming when I break up with him. and that's where this I did something bad reputation has come from. Does that make sense? Am I reading way too much into this? Probably. That's okay. Or it's just playboys love me, I fly them all around the world, I let them think they saved me, and they never see it coming. I feel like that's just the simpler reading of it. That is probably the right reading. I don't know. She's basically outlining, I think, what the reputation is built off of and the things that she is owning. She's saying, so I do this and I do that and they never see it coming what I do next. And she says, this is how the world works. Again, kind of playing into that, like, I'm innocent here. I'm powerless against this system. This is how the world works. You gotta leave before you're left, which is sad.
But if he drops my name, then I owe him nothing. And if he spends my change, then he had it coming.
All right. It keeps bringing me back to blank space, this idea of I'm going to lean into this narrative, but it's not a character anymore. I'm saying that I actually did that. I feel like whenever she's about to do something bad, the like devilish flames start rising. I can see it kind of playing out in my head. But he says, again, with he, not they. She could have said, they say don't throw away a good thing. I don't know. Who's he and who's they? All right. He says, don't throw away a good thing. But if he drops my name, then I owe him nothing. And if he spends my change, then he had it coming. So if he uses, honestly, my reputation, my name, my reputation, then I owe him nothing. If he spends my money, my change, which would imply a small amount of money, then he had it coming. And what's interesting to me is he had it coming is repeated. So I would assume then that talking is comparable and being related to if a man uses my name or if he uses my name. So he didn't drop her name in a kind way is what I'm picking up. And if he spends my change, he had it coming. That connects to I don't regret it one bit. But he says, don't throw away a good thing. I just feel like there's so many layers you could read into this song that it gets a little bit confusing to like keep to one. My brain is like, is this about Kanye? Is each stanza referring to a different thing? I don't know. I'm excited to see your comments and see what you think about this song. But yeah, overall, I feel like this is what people say that I've done, and I'm just leaning into it. That's the vibe I'm getting overall. Okay. Oh, I love that part. Oh, that is good. One more time.
Just felt so good. They're burning all the witches, even if you aren't one.
Oh my gosh. Is that where it ends after that? Yeah, okay. So they're burning all the witches, even if you aren't one. I mean, obviously a reference to like the Salem witch trials and all of this, a very like unjust time in history when you could be accused of being a witch just on hearsay. So I think that's a very pointed and intentionally selected example. They got their pitchforks and proof, they got their receipts and reasons, and that's all they need, right? They have their proof, whatever that means. They have their receipts, they have their reasons, and even if you're not one, it almost sounds like there's nothing you can do about it because they're burning all the witches. So she says, so light me up. Again, I think it ties back to this is how the world works. So instead of trying to fight it again and again, light me up. That's the whole summary of this song in one line. So light me up. This song had more to it than I really thought it would. And I'm curious to see your thoughts, as I've said. And that over and over and over again part is so good. All right. Okay, one more. Which one do you think it's gonna be? I have not ever listened to this song all the way through, by the way.
It was so nice throwing big parties, jumping to the pool from the balcony. Everyone's swimming in a
Very Gatsby-esque. Maybe New Year's Day even.
bass beat, rattling the chandelier. Feeling so Gatsby for that whole year.
There it is. That's it. That's so funny. I was like, wow, this gives me Gatsby vibes. Then she's like, so Gatsby. Love that. That's cool. It was so nice throwing big parties, jumping into the pool from the balcony. Everyone's swimming in a champagne sea. It's giving a very luxurious picture. Big parties. It's not a small party. jump into the pool from the balcony. So there's a balcony at this house. You can jump into the pool from it. That's kind of dangerous and reckless, but fun, you know? And everyone's swimming in a champagne sea. So just giving very luxurious feelings. There are no rules when you show up here, hence why you're jumping off the balcony into the pool. The bass beat is rattling the chandelier, another luxurious image. Feeling so Gatsby for that whole year. So a reference to The Great Gatsby. Much faster read than The Count of Monte Cristo, I'm just saying. If you haven't read it, do. It's so good. Tragic, but good. Anyway, but the whole idea within The Great Gatsby is that Gatsby throws these very lavish parties. He's very wealthy, and he's doing it to kind of draw Daisy, his love interest, draw her attention, draw her in. But it's very, very lavish and very much like no rules, anything goes. And so Feeling So Gatsby really fits that whole vibe. That's why when I heard it, I was like, this feels like a Gatsby party. So for that whole year, I don't know which year that refers to. One of you will know and you will tell me and I will be grateful. All I need to know is for that year, she was like on top of the world and she was the one throwing the big party. She was Gatsby. So it wasn't just she was, in a successful place and she was going to all these parties. Like she was the center of it all. Everyone came to her parties. You know what I mean? So that's a big distinction.
Why'd you have to rain on my parade? I'm shaking my head and locking the gates.
Why'd you have to rain on my parade? I'm shaking my head and locking the gates. I feel like this fits perfectly in the theme of this album where she's not a victim anymore. She's not just the person who's going to take all of this heat and then, just be the nice girl. She's almost owning it to the point of like, I am above you. I am the one throwing the Gatsby party. So if my reputation suffers or if something bad like this happens, it's not I'm hiding away because I'm scared or I'm intimidated. It's because you don't deserve to have me in your life. So I'm shaking my head and locking the gates like shame on you. She's not internalizing that like shame on me. What did I do? I must have done something bad. Guilt and shame and all of that. She's saying, you rained on my parade, so I shook my head and locked the gates. No more parties for you, sir. So I feel a lot of empowerment coming through in these songs, and I think that's really significant. We should pay attention to that. But the idea of this is why we can't have nice things is really funny to me. I feel like that ties perfectly in with the revenge theme. It's like, listen, you're the reason we can't have nice things. You're the reason I'm locking the gates, shaking my head, doing bad things, whatever it is. Like, I'm taking revenge because you did something, not because I did something. You know what I mean? She says, you break them. I had to take them away. This is why we can't have nice things. Did you think I wouldn't hear all the things you said about me? So that ties back to the other songs where it's if a man talks shit, then I owe him nothing. If you drop my name. And now she's saying, but I heard what you actually said about me. This is why we can't have nice things. You broke it. You're at fault. So it's really less of I'm taking the victim stance and more of like I'm putting that on you, which I think is a pivotal shift that happened with this album.
There I was giving you a second chance, but you stabbed me in the back while shaking my head.
Well, I feel this one is much more pointedly about the Kanye Kim phone call debacle. So here she says, it was so nice being friends again, right? Because there was this like the thing that happened with Kanye and then the separation and then trying to mend these fences, but it was all a lie, right? There I was giving you a second chance. That connects so clearly to you asked me for a place to sleep and I gave it to you, right? Like she let them in and that's how they stole the kingdom keys. She says, you stabbed me in the back while shaking my hand. Taylor loves a backstabbing, knife in the back image, just have to say. It's in so many songs. Again, you're making me play the fool. Like, I didn't know better. I'm an idiot for trusting you. And that was your little game. You wanted me to look like a fool. So you orchestrated this perfect crime. You said the gun was mine. You shook my hand while you were stabbing me in the back. It all connects in this revenge arc. Yeah, and so then she says, therein lies the issue. Friends don't try to trick you, get you on the phone and mind twist you, so I took an axe to a mended fence. And again, even in those 3 lines, there's an entire revenge story in just those 3 lines. Friends don't try to trick you. get on the phone and mind twist you. That's the innocent main character being wrongfully hurt and unjustly treated, right? Then she says, and so I took an axe to a mended fence. So that's her enacting revenge. And so that's a whole revenge story in those 3 lines, which is so fun.
Here's a toast to my real friends. They don't care about that he said, she said.
She says, here's a toast. Like, that also feels very Gatsby-esque to like raise your glass. Here's a toast to my real friends. They don't care about the he said, she said. So what she's saying there, they don't care about the hearsay that's been going around. Like, I heard what you said about me, and you're not the only one. They said I did something bad. And all of her real friends don't care about all of the they said this, he said that. So I think that's cool. It connects to the other songs that way. Here's to my baby. He ain't reading what they call me lately. That's really sweet. So the real people who are close to her are able to step back from this sort of facade of what is being put on her reputation that's being told to her, about her, for her, and they're able to see through that and connect with who she really is. She says, here's to my mama, had to listen to all this drama. Yeah, I bet Mama Swift got the full earful all the time. And here's to you, because forgiveness is a nice thing to do. I can't even say it with a straight face. Yeah, it's really funny. So that tells me, like, I'm not forgiving you. It'd be a nice thing to do, but we can't have nice things. So no more nice things to you, ergo, no forgiveness. That's what that's telling me. In terms of a revenge narrative, it's almost the best kind of revenge, because the revenge is not letting any of that affect how I actually see myself or who I am. Locking you out and then giving a toast to my real friends, this guy who loves me, my family. Like, I have what matters. I can choose to play into this narrative, but it doesn't actually affect me anymore. I think that's super powerful, and it's a really interesting take on the revenge story. And obviously this is her real life. It's not a fictional story she's made up from scratch. So that's a little bit different. Of course, it's not like I'm writing this revenge story on purpose, but I think it's cool to see that same arc throughout these songs that we've seen in all of the stories we looked at today, but with a much different ending. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What connections are you drawing? Which of these 3 songs do you feel like speaks to this theme of revenge the most? If you enjoyed this video, it does help my channel a whole lot if you like, subscribe. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly had a lot of fun making it, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.